Boat. Yeah. Boat. Pencil. Woo. Yeah. Hey. You ain't know about it, but you know it now. Say you gotta hear it from the golden mouth. That's that. Go talk. That's that. Go talk. That's that. Go talk. That's that. Go talk. Hey. Worldwide, but I'm so south. They say you gotta hear it from the golden mouth. That's that. Go talk. That's that. Go talk.
This episode is powered by PodDecks.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the G.O.A.T Talk podcast, powered by PodDecks and fueled by Goat Fuel. Today we have a loaded show for you guys. Not only are we going to recap the events of Sunday around the NFL, we'll also discuss Thursday Night Football to kick off the show, which I do want to apologize to you guys for not having that video up for you guys. The video wasn't that high quality of a video. The audio was kind of messed up, and so was the video, and so was the visual, and I didn't want to just post it to YouTube just for the sake of saying that I had uploaded the video, and so do apologize to you guys for that. We also are on the road to 100 episodes. In fact, the 100th episode of the Go Talk podcast will be this Wednesday live on YouTube. We'll have some guests on the show. We'll recap week 2, look ahead to week 3. So really excited for that. Thank you guys all for the love and the support over these first 100 episodes, and on to the next 100. But let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's get into the good stuff. NFC East battle between the Washington football team and the New York Giants. And we'll start in the second half, right? Coming out of the second half, the Washington football team did have the lead 14-10 on their opening drive. New York would go down the field. They would kick a field goal. They would force a punt on fourth. They would force Washington to punt the football. They would get the ball. They would get the ball back, and they would score a touchdown. Daniel Jones, 33 yards deep to Darius Slayton. To the left side of the field, it was really academic. Washington, they would get the ball back, and they would they would take advantage of they would take advantage of a pass interference call on Bradbury, and they would ultimately end up in field goal range. Dustin Hopkins would nail a 49-yard field goal to make the score 20-17. New York still in the lead. New York gets the ball back. They kick a field goal as well, which makes the score 23-17. So after trading field goals back and forth, Washington and New York would trade 2 more field goals to kick off the fourth quarter. And then Washington gets the ball back. They're down 26-20 with about 5-ish minutes to go. With about 5-ish minutes to go in the fourth quarter. First play of the drive is a 56-yard pass to J.D. McKissick, which would then set up a nice 19-yard touchdown to Riley Seals-Jones. That was actually his first catch in Washington for a touchdown. All important. They go up 26-27. New York would punt. The Giants would be forced to then punt the football. Washington gets the ball back. And really, this is a pretty clean game for both quarterbacks, which I'll get into it a bit. This is a pretty clean game for both quarterbacks. But the first mistake would come on this next drive because on a 3-play drive, Taylor Heineke would throw an interception. The Giants would go down the field. They would score a field goal following that. And then with about 2 minutes to go, Washington gets the ball back, right? They get the ball back. They had a complete pass. They reviewed it, verified that it was complete, spiked the ball. The first kick was missed by just a hair, but they did call an offside penalty. Dustin Hopkins would get another chance to kick the ball, to kick the field goal for the win. 5 yards closer, he would nail it. Washington escapes 30-29. It was a really, really, really good game, right? These NFC East games, as much as we want to say that the NFC East sucks and all that good stuff, they always give us some good games. This was really, really, really good football from both teams. Daniel Jones, 22 for 32, 249 yards, a touchdown. He also had 9 carries, 95 yards, and a touchdown on the ground as well. And then on the Washington side of things, Taylor Heineke played tremendously, right? Aside from the 1 touchdown at the end of the game, he was 34 for 46, 336 yards and 2 touchdowns. Taylor McLaurin, 11 receptions for 107 yards and a touchdown. These two teams, again, they're not the best offenses in the world. The Washington defense, I think, the Washington defense played better than they did in week 1, but they didn't play up to the potential that we're used to seeing. And the Giants were able to take advantage of that and make this a really, really, really close game. The biggest takeaway for me, though, is maybe Taylor Heineke. There's obviously the big question: can Taylor Heineke continue the success? Can Taylor Heineke be the starting quarterback even once Ryan Fitzpatrick comes back? And here's what I'll say to that: I said I said after Ryan Tannehill was injured, I might have said it on this show or maybe on Justin's show. I'm on too many shows, I don't remember, but I know I did say that if Taylor Heineke can at least have Washington winning at least 4 of these next, if he can keep them at 500, right? If Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to be out for 8 weeks, if he can keep Washington at 4-4 over these next 8 weeks, he puts them in a really good position in this division. They are 1-1, right? The Cowboys are 1-1. The Eagles are 1-1, and now the Giants are 0-2. So this division is still, I mean, it's only just 2 weeks into the season, but this division is still wide open, as it typically is every season, because there's not really one clear-cut contender heading into each season. But Taylor Heineke playing as well, he didn't play. I mean, throwing the ball almost 50 times, only the 1 interception at the end of the game. Played really, really, really good football throughout the course of the game. Really good game planning, of course. Maybe, who knows, right? Maybe Taylor Heineke can keep the job once Ryan Fitzpatrick gets back. We'll have to see if he can continue the success, right? If you look at Washington, of course, they played the Giants. This is not a formidable defense, right? This is not a defense we look at and you go, ooh, that where you look at it and maybe there's some trouble. I think if you were to look ahead at Washington's schedule and see what they have coming up, I think there could be some games that are really going to be the true indicators of whether or not, right, they got the Bills next week, and then they got the Falcons, and they got the Saints, the Chiefs, and the Packers, and the Broncos. I think those are going to be the games where we see Taylor Heineke play, and then, of course, they have the Week 9 bye, and then he might play against the Buccaneers, maybe. But those games, the game against, you got a game against the Bills, the Falcons, and the Saints, the Chiefs, the Packers, the Broncos. Of those games, you've got a couple of, you got games, with an exception of the Falcons and the Broncos, I think, the Bills, the Saints, the Chiefs, and the Packers, they all had top 10 defenses in the league last season. Of course, you've got explosive offenses, with the Bills blowing out the Dolphins 35-0. Of course, you got the Chiefs being an explosive offense. The Packers are an explosive offense. The Saints can put points up on the board. And so those are the games where we're really going to see just if Taylor Heineke can carry this team through the rest of the season. You have your Week 9 bye, and then you come out of that bye, and you've got the wild card round rematch with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's going to be a very big game as well, right? Maybe Taylor Heineke plays that game. Who knows? But with the way that, and then that's an extra game. So it really all depends on of course, he'll play through Week 8, of course, because that we won't have Ryan Fitzpatrick won't be back. They'll have the bye week. And so maybe coming out of Week 10, we'll see if Taylor Heineke could be the starter. But in this division, though, maybe you can win this division with Taylor Heineke. You could also win this division with Ryan Fitzpatrick at the helm. It really just all depends on matchups, right? We saw in Miami last season that the 2-quarterback system worked with Brian Flores, of course, Tua Tagovailoa, and Ryan Fitzpatrick, where they ran that 2-quarterback system. It led them to 10 wins, right? And 10 wins, unfortunately, in the AFC is not enough to make the playoffs. And 10 wins in the NFC East is enough to make the playoffs this season. I have the Washington football team winning 10 games this season, winning the NFC East, going back to the playoffs as the 4th seed. So who knows? It all depends. It is still up for discussion, but I think a performance like that on Thursday Night Football really does put the odds in his favor to potentially keep the job even once Ryan Fitzpatrick comes back. And for the moment, you don't have to ring Cam Newton's phone. So everybody wins. Everybody's happy unless you're Cam Newton, because you still don't have a job. Moving on from Thursday night and getting into Sunday's game state. Let's start with the teams that were able to go out there and remain perfect. And we'll start with the Las Vegas Raiders, who went into Pittsburgh and got the job done 26-17. Derek Carr had yet another phenomenal game, 28 for 37, had 382 yards, 2 touchdowns. Henry Ruggs had a pretty good game, 5 receptions for 113 and a touchdown. This Raiders offense through 2 weeks has done really well against really good defenses, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers, they had a top 5 defense last season. The Ravens had a top 10 defense last season, if I'm not mistaken. So far through 2 games, you've done really well against tough opponents. And who would have thought that, who would have thought that through 2 weeks of the season, the Raiders and the Broncos are undefeated. The Chiefs and the Chargers are 1-1. Of course, it's only 2 weeks into the season. As the season progresses, of course, things will stratify the way we're used to. The Chiefs will rise to the top, and so will the Chargers. But if you're the Raiders, you're looking really good so far. Maybe the Raiders can be competing for those playoff spots as we continue later into the season. Moving into the NFC, specifically the NFC South, Carolina Panthers get the job done, staying undefeated, 26-17 over the New Orleans Saints. Justin, if you're watching, Sam Darnold is not that bad of a quarterback, right? And I'm going to and just by the way, Justin will be on the show on Wednesday to celebrate 100 episodes. I'm going to make fun of Justin throughout the course of the show every chance I get. We get it, okay? Turnovers was an issue for Sam Darnold in New York, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in the show. maybe the problem isn't maybe the problem wasn't Sam Darnold, maybe it was the New York Jets, right? Sam Darnold, 26 for 38, 305 touchdowns, 305 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have the one interception. But the big thing for me, though, even though Christian McCaffrey was productive, right? 24 carries, 72 yards. He did have the touchdown, 5 receptions, 85 yards in the backfield. I mean, in receiving. Christian McCaffrey did leave the game injured at one point. So Sam Darnold was able to put up these numbers and beat this New Orleans Saints team without a run game. The one thing that we were worried about with Sam Darnold, and one thing that I looked at and said, I think why Sam Darnold's going to have really a resurrection of his career, or not really a resurrection because he's really not that good, but really he's going to boost his career, was because of the weapons, because of your Christian McCaffreys and your DJ Moores and your Robbie Andersons and guys like that you have around you that you didn't have in New York. Because despite not having the run game in Christian McCaffrey, which is what Sam Darnold's used to because they didn't have a run game when he was in New York, he's got the weapons on the outside. He's got the weapons at the receiving core and at your tight end position where you can still be a factor. You can still make the defense pay. The Panthers did just that. Sam Darnold did just that. That's why the Panthers, surprisingly, along with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, are undefeated through 2 weeks into the season. Another team that's undefeated, just mentioned them, the Denver Broncos, defeating the Jacksonville Jaguars 23-13. Teddy Bridgewater continuing to show that he's still that great of a quarterback. If we remember back to Teddy Bridgewater, he took a Buffalo Bills team not so long ago to the playoffs, right? And then, of course, he got injured, and then he was in Los Angeles last year with the Chargers, and the doctors punctured his lungs, and we thought we saw the end of Teddy Bridgewater. Well, so far, through 2 weeks after winning the starting job from Drew Lock in Denver, he's undefeated, 26 for 34, 328 yards, 2 touchdowns. Cortland Sutton played a good game. Cortland Sutton's role is going to be expanded. He's already wide receiver 1. I think that they want to ease him into the season, of course, because he was coming off of injury last season. But now that Jerry Jeudy is out for the foreseeable future, Cortland Sutton's going to get a big boost in production. And so I think we'll Noah Fant as well. Those are some pretty good weapons for you to have if you're Teddy Bridgewater. And then, of course, you've got Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams in your backfield. So this is a decent Denver offense. This is not an offense to sneeze at for the Denver Broncos. And again, like I said, through 2 weeks so far, they're undefeated. And it's only 2 weeks of the season. I'm going to keep saying that. But it does look good if you're the Denver Broncos to be 2-0. Another team that's 2-0 going into the toughest division in the NFL, the NFC West. San Francisco 49ers get the job done against the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Jimmy Garoppolo, 22 for 30, 189 yards and a touchdown. He had 11 carries for 20 yards and a touchdown. Deebo Samuel, 6 receptions for 93 yards. The run game is going to take a backseat, I think, a little bit now that Raheem Mostert is out. They do still do the running back by committee, but I don't know if we'll have those big explosive running games that we are used to seeing in San Francisco. This is going to be very, very a lot of the San Francisco success for the foreseeable future, really for the rest of the season, really, until they can figure out exactly who's going to be their lead back, is going to hinge on the success of Jimmy Garoppolo through the air. Very successful against the Philadelphia Eagles, and a victory for the San Francisco 49ers, remaining undefeated in what is a very, very, very tough NFC West. Another team in the NFC West that stays undefeated, the Los Angeles Rams, get the job done against the Colts, 27-24. Matt Stafford had a pretty good game, again, continuing to prove that maybe, similarly to Sam Darnold in Carolina, maybe the issue wasn't Matt Stafford, maybe the issue was Detroit, right? He's on a team that has the weapons, that's built to win, that's built to do very well. They're doing very well so far, undefeated this season, 2-0. Cooper Kupp had a fantastic game, 9 receptions for 163 yards and 2 touchdowns, basically won me my fantasy football game last night. So I definitely appreciate that. This Los Angeles Rams team, I think the big matchup that we were all looking at was Quentin Nelson versus Aaron Donald. And that was a very, very, very fun thing to look at. Fun to see those two go at it. Carson Wentz, right? Carson Wentz bet on himself. As the old saying goes, if no one else is going to bet on you, bet on yourself. Carson Wentz bet on himself. He's no longer in Philadelphia. He's in Indianapolis, and right now he's 0-2. This is a football team that was in the playoffs last season, winning they won the AFC South, but they were second in the AFC South, but they were in the playoffs last season, having won, I think, 10 games last season with Phillip Rivers. We all think that a healthy Carson Wentz is better than Phillip Rivers in his last season. We're all ranting and raving about the fact that Carson Wentz reuniting with Frank Reich could rejuvenate his career. So far through 2 games, he's played 2 tough opponents. He's played the Rams and the Seahawks, hasn't really played that well, and because of it, his team is 0-2. That's even and turning around in week 3. And then the last NFC West team that remains undefeated, the Arizona Cardinals, 34-33. First of all, just before I get into the Cardinals here, the Vikings, I think, are going to be swimming in the sea of mediocrity this season. This is the second time in as many weeks that the Vikings have had to kick a field goal to win a football game, and they failed both times. But Arizona Cardinals, the big story, of course, Kyler Murray, who was last week's GOAT Talk Offensive Player of the Week. 29 for 36, 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did throw 2 interceptions. He also had 5 carries, 31 yards, and a touchdown. Rondale Moore, seven catches for 114 yards and a touchdown. Meek Williams, I think that's his name. He had 7 receptions for 94 yards. This is a really, really, really good offense, right? I have doubts about the Cardinals, but I never doubted this offense because the weapons are there. I've always only doubted the coaching. The talents are there. The Arizona Cardinals, undefeated. This could be very, very, very big for the Cardinals. Kyler Murray through 2 weeks already throwing his name in the hat for potential MVP frontrunner right now through 2 weeks in the season. But of course, it's only 2 weeks into the season. And so we're not talking about MVP for at least another 3 or 4 weeks as we get to the middle of the season. We'll see if Kyler Murray can keep up this level of production. But so far, he's been playing really, really well. And the big one, Tampa Bay Buccaneers just absolutely annihilate the Atlanta Falcons 48-25. Tom Brady, I mean, talk about turning back the clock. 24 for 36, 276 yards, 5 touchdowns. Mike Evans had 2 touchdown catches. Rob Gronkowski had the other 2, but the big one, Mike Edwards, 2 interceptions. Both of them were returned for touchdowns. Those 2 defensive touchdowns, along with, of course, the 5 touchdowns from Tom Brady, really just talk about a complete obliteration of the Atlanta Falcons. I was on Justin's show maybe a week or so ago, and the question was, are the Buccaneers better this season than they are last season? And I said heading into week 1, no, because we haven't seen them play. So far through 2 weeks into 2020, into the 2021 season versus 2 weeks into the 2020 season, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are ahead of where they were at this time last season, and they can only continue to do better. But like I said, when you're I say this all the time, when you're at the top of Mount Everest and you fall a couple hundred feet, you're still on top of the world. You're still head and shoulders above the rest. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are proving to be very, very, very formidable through 2 weeks. Had a close game against the Cowboys in week 1 where they almost lost. They came back, still continued to produce, still dominated the Atlanta Falcons. Their 48-25 victory over the Atlanta Falcons was a big one. Moving on from the undefeated teams, let's talk about 2 teams that are 1-1, specifically 2 teams that are helmed by young quarterbacks. And we'll start with the growing pains of the New York Jets. The Patriots get their first win. Mac Jones gets his first win of the season after defeating the Jets. I didn't put the score in there. I'm sorry. It was 25-6, I think was the score. Mac Jones, before we get into the negative, let's talk about the positive. Mac Jones had a pretty good game. 22 for 30, had 186 yards. Damian Harris had 16 carries for 62 yards and a touchdown. J.C. Jackson, 3 tackles, 2 passing defenses, and 2 interceptions. Very, very big. But let's talk about those growing pains, right? Zach Wilson, 19 for 33, 210 yards, 4 interceptions. He started his first 2 passes were interceptions. It's going to be some growing pains for Zach Wilson in New York. Not a lot of weapons. Offensive line stinks. Defense stinks. It's going to be a stinker. It is going to be a stinker in New York for the foreseeable future for Zach Wilson and this New York Jets offense. You've got a defensive-minded head coach. You have Mike LaFleur as your offensive coordinator. As we all know, as I've said it several times, run that same offense that Matt LaFleur and Sean McVay and Arthur Smith and and Kyle Shanahan all run at their respective offenses. It's been a struggle so far. When you don't have the weapons, it's hard to really get anything done. We all looked at Zach Wilson as being probably the most talented quarterback in this draft on paper. He sucked. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that he played the Patriots. It's hard if you're a rookie quarterback, you're not beating the New England Patriots. It's just something that doesn't happen. And so far, Bill Belichick, after it was a close loss, a 1-point loss last week, to get that win, of course, you're seeing this offense in New England looks really, really good. But if you're Zach Wilson, yikes. 4 interceptions. It's not that, I mean, you can take it as a grain of salt. You can take it with an anomaly. There are going to be growing pains. He is a rookie in the NFL. This is a pretty bad New York Jets offense. This was a pretty tough head coach in New England Patriots to play against. No rookie quarterback has ever beaten Bill Belichick, and so far that trend continues after this victory over Zach Wilson and the New York Jets. Another young quarterback with some growing pains yesterday. Chicago Bears defeated the Bengals. I actually had the Bengals winning this one. I had this one as an upset. This is one of the games I incorrectly predicted. Andy Dalton was down with an injury, but before he did it, he was 9 for 11 with 56 yards and a touchdown. Justin Fields comes in, he's 6 for 13 with 6 yards. He throws a touchdown, and he also got 10 carries for 31 yards. The big one again, talk about those growing pains. Let's talk about Joe Let's talk about Joe Burrow, who was 19 for 30, 207 yards, 2 touchdowns. And he had 1 interception. I think he had more than 1 interception. And maybe I've got the stats wrong down there. But it was definitely a struggle. He had 3 interceptions. I'm sorry, he had 3 interceptions. That number is wrong. Everything else is right, but he had 3 interceptions. Joe Burrow struggled. He only threw 3 interceptions in his last, I think, 305 pass attempts, which dates back to last season. He threw 3 in as many attempts in yesterday's game, and they were all, I believe, in the second half. Maybe the Chicago's Bears defense is being rejuvenated. Who knows? But if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, nothing to worry about. Again, I think you take this one more so than Zach Wilson. I think you can definitely take this game for Joe Burrow as an anomaly because he tends to take care of the ball. He tends to be very careful with his ball placement. You don't have a lot of weapons. You do have T. Higgins. You do have Jamar Chase. Of course, the offensive line is always going to be a point of concern because it sucks. The defense is also going to be a point of concern because it sucks. So there are still some growing pains for Joe Burrow, and there were some growing pains yesterday for Zach Wilson. These are 2 teams I think that'll be more so the Bengals and the Jets. They'll be okay. What I mean by okay is I'm not going to be looking at the Bengals as particularly competing for a playoff spot as the season comes to an end. But we could see the Bengals winning close to 6 games this season, maybe even 7, as long as Joe Burrow stays healthy, because I do think he is that good of a quarterback. And that's really the big thing, is that they do have a good quarterback. They do have some nice weapons. The offensive line, of course, is a big issue. Of course, you do still have Joe Mixon. You've got T. Higgins, as I said, and Jamar Chase outside. Your defense isn't great. And so you're going to have some close games like this against some pretty teams that are also kind of swimming, as I said, with the Vikings in the sea of mediocrity. And so maybe for the Bengals, you take some solace in that. Maybe the Bengals win some games they probably don't expect to win this season because of just how close those games might actually be, right? They beat the Vikings in week 1 in overtime just by hanging in there. Another team that's swimming in the sea of mediocrity. And if you're the Bengals, you're going to have a couple of teams on your schedule that's swimming in the sea of mediocrity. We might see the Bengals upset the Ravens or even the Browns or the Steelers this season. At least one of those teams, I think the Bengals could go into those towns or have them at home and get the job done and beat them, because I think that they have enough on offense where they can at least compete. This is an offense, I think, despite the offensive line, that could still compete, that could still engage in a shootout and hold their own. And so I think the Bengals, for what it's worth, will be relatively okay. Getting into the main event of the evening, Sunday Night Football. This was the big one. This is a big one for me because, as we all know, Lamar Jackson heading into this one had never defeated Patrick Mahomes. Will start in the first quarter, very first drive of the game. Lamar Jackson throws an interception on 3rd and 8, and Tyrann Mathieu takes it back for the touchdown. And the Chiefs jump out to a 7-0 lead. They get the ball back. Lamar Jackson learns from his mistakes. This is a run-heavy drive on this one. The first drive and through 3 plays, whatever. 2 plays, 1 run. This one was a much heavier. This was a run-heavy. This is a run-heavy drive on their second drive. They get the ball into the end zone to tie it up. Then the Chiefs, they get the ball officially for their first offensive drive. They go down the field, put the ball into the end zone. Patrick Mahomes deep for Demarcus Robinson, 33 yards to the house. 14-7 is your score. On the very next drive for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson drops back on 3rd and 14 from the 28-yard line. Tyrann Mathieu, there goes that man again, and getting yet another interception. To end the quarter, though, the Chiefs cannot respond until they punt the ball. We get a couple punts. The Ravens punt the ball, and then the Chiefs punt the ball again. Ravens get the ball back. And on 1st and goal from the 5-yard line, Latavius Murray gets the 5-yard touchdown run to tie it all up at 14-14. The Chiefs respond with another touchdown of their own. This one, Damian Williams into the end zone, 1st and goal from the 2-yard line, gets it in there, 21-14. The Ravens get the ball back, 21-17. They go down the field and end up kicking a field goal. 43-yarder is good from Justin Tucker. There's 3 things that are inevitable in life: death, taxes, and Justin Tucker hitting the field goal. And that will be the end of the first half. And so heading into the second half, the Chiefs get the ball to start off. They're up 28-17. 40-yard touchdown pass to Pringle from Patrick Mahomes. Touchdown is theirs. 28-17 is the score. Back to the Ravens. They score a touchdown on that jump pass that we loved so great last night from Lamar Jackson, pulling a rabbit, pulling a trick from Patrick Mahomes' books, leaving his feet to get the ball down there to Marquise Brown for 42 yards and a touchdown. Chiefs get the ball back. They respond with a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes to Travis Kelce for 46 yards. He would not go down. Just didn't go down, didn't want to go down, and he didn't. The Ravens get the ball back. They punt the football. Patrick Mahomes then throws the interception on the ensuing drive. It was intended for Travis Kelce, but it was intercepted. The Ravens, they come and they score a touchdown. Lamar Jackson runs it in for two from the 2-yard line to make it 35-30 heading into the fourth quarter. The Chiefs punt the ball. Then the Ravens do something that we haven't really ever seen them do. And this was the point of emphasis for me. If you look through this drive or look through the game, a lot of these drives are less than 5 minutes. A lot of these are quick strike drive, whether it's a scoring drive or a touchdown or a turnover, whatever. A lot of these drives are very, very, very quick drives. The Ravens come down after the Chiefs punt the ball. The Raiders come down and they just milk the clock. 8 minutes, 8-minute touchdown drive, 14 plays. They started at the 32. They went 63 yards in 8 minutes. I'm going to be a little bit of a nerd here. That's about 8 yards a minute to go down the field and score that touchdown. They take the lead 36-35, and then the fumble. The Chiefs have the ball down 1 point. Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumbled the football in the backfield, and that is the game. And so now the question becomes, has Lamar Jackson done enough to prove that he is an elite quarterback and that he could potentially lead the Baltimore Ravens to a Super Bowl? He played great, 18 for 26, edge guys and T, 239 yards, a touchdown. He had the interception. He had 16 carries for 107 yards, and he ran it in twice. Latavius Murray, he had his one touchdown. Marquise Brown had a touchdown, right? Look at the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, did Patrick Mahomes things. 24 for 31, 343 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Travis Kelce had himself a touchdown. But the question remains, did they do enough? Did Lamar Jackson and the Ravens do enough to prove that they could compete for a Super Bowl, if not this season, in the coming seasons? And the answer to that question for me is no. And the reason why the answer for that question to me is no is because Lamar Jackson is not an elite passer. Lamar Jackson is a top 7 quarterback in the NFL right now. Top 6, maybe. He's not top 5, but he's just outside. If you want to put him at 6 or 7, I can't get mad at you. I'd even give you 8, depending on who you have ahead of him. 9 and 10, I don't know. I think he is at the least the 7th best quarterback in the NFL today. Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Tom Brady are better than him, I think, as a no-brainer. If you want to maybe put Kyler Murray ahead of them, I'll give you that because I personally think he is. I have Kyler Murray at 6 because Kyler Murray is a better passer than Lamar Jackson. If you even want to say that maybe Matt Stafford's better than Lamar Jackson, I think you'd have a valid argument. I think you can make that argument with some validity. I think that's really it. Maybe you could argue Matt Ryan, but I'd push back on Matt Ryan. I'd push back on Jimmy Garoppolo. I'd push back on Ben Roethlisberger. I'd listen to some Baker Mayfield arguments because I think Baker Mayfield could make an argument that maybe he's better than Lamar. But at the least, I have Lamar Jackson as 7. Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Tom Brady, and the other guy whose name I just forgotten now because I have short-term memory loss, I think are all better than Lamar Jackson. So he's the 7th best quarterback in the NFL right now. Is he the best quarterback in this division? Yes, you could make an argument that he's the 2nd best quarterback in the division because you could make an argument that maybe Baker Mayfield is better than him. But all intents and purposes, he's the best quarterback in his division. Is he on the best team in his division? Yes, it's really close. The Browns have closed the gap, but I think right now, you can say the Ravens are better than the Browns. I have the Browns winning the division because I think they're more complete than the Ravens are on both sides of the ball. But if you want to say the Ravens are the best team in the division, I wouldn't look at you like you're crazy. But with all that being said, though, Lamar Jackson is a fantastic quarterback. Lamar Jackson is outstanding. Lamar Jackson is elite. Lamar Jackson is box office. Lamar Jackson is worth the price of admission no matter where in the world he is playing football. You're going to pay the price of admission just to see Lamar Jackson play football. With all that being said, though, I don't know if Lamar Jackson's style of play is enough to win a Super Bowl because we haven't seen it. We haven't seen a quarterback this electric. We haven't seen a quarterback that has a run-heavy style. We haven't seen a quarterback that can kill you on the ground just as much, if not even more than they can kill you through the air, win a Super Bowl, right? Michael Vick. Before there was Lamar Jackson, there was Michael Vick. Michael Vick was outstanding. He was electric. He was out of this world. Cheat code, Madden 04. Probably the greatest sports video game character of all time. If not, he's in the top 3. He didn't win the Super Bowl. Now the rebuttal to that would be Russell Wilson. And I would say, as much as Russell Wilson is a dual threat quarterback, Russell Wilson is not as prolific running the ball than Lamar Jackson. And Russell Wilson is a better passer than Lamar Jackson. And so I think that even though Russell Wilson it does have that dual threat ability, Russell Wilson relies on his arm a lot more, especially now, than he does on his legs. And I would say, again, he's not as electric. He's not he can hurt you with his legs if given the opportunity, but he is not as prolific as a runner of the football from the quarterback position as Lamar Jackson is, right? Even Colin Kaepernick, who in his day when he was leading the 49ers to the Super Bowl was a pretty good running quarterback. Probably the best we had in the NFL. I would say the only other guy that rivaled him at the time was Russell Wilson. He could throw the football, wasn't that great of a passer, wasn't that elite of a passer. I would say he was a pretty good passer, wasn't that great of a passer. He could have put the ball down there when given the opportunity. Of course, he did have the arm strength and he had the ability to get the ball down there. But that offense back then in San Francisco was contingent a lot more on his legs than his arm, much like this Baltimore offense is right now. Colin Kaepernick didn't win a Super Bowl, took his team to a Super Bowl, but didn't win it. Lamar Jackson, I don't think he'll win a Super Bowl like this. I think we have to see Lamar Jackson win a football game with his arm. Lamar Jackson has not won a football game with his arm. They won the football game, but it wasn't because of his arm. It was because of Lamar Jackson, but not because of Lamar Jackson's arm. And I think until we get to a point where Lamar Jackson can win a football game with his arm, and then I'll look at you and I'll say, yes, Lamar Jackson can win a Super Bowl. I'm not saying Lamar Jackson will never win a Super Bowl, because Lamar Jackson is probably the greatest dual threat quarterback in the history. Not even probably. Lamar Jackson is the greatest dual threat quarterback the league has ever seen, the world has ever seen. That's stamped. That's official. That's a fact. I'm not crapping on Lamar Jackson. I love Lamar Jackson. I would love to talk to Lamar Jackson. I don't want you guys to think that I'm saying Lamar Jackson sucks, because he's not. I just want to see Lamar Jackson win a game with his arm. A lot of people want to see Lamar Jackson win a game with his arm because we know he can win a game with his legs. We've seen him win a football game with his legs. No one can ever deny Lamar Jackson's ability to hurt you when he pulls the ball down and is declaring himself a runner. He's never going to be figured out on that aspect. I've said it at least 3 times this season. I'll say it again. Didn't figure him out when he was a baby, not in Pot Warner, not in elementary school, not in middle school, not in high school, obviously not in college. And they haven't figured him out yet. And I don't think they're going to figure him out as far as his leg is concerned. I think the aspect of Lamar Jackson that people are starting to figure out is that 9 times out of 10, if he's going to pick between which one to kill you with his leg or his arm, he's going to pick his legs, because that's where he's gotten a lot of his success. That's where he knows he can kill you. That's where he knows he can hurt you. He is yet to prove on the NFL level that he can kill you with his arm. He is a fantastic quarterback. He has the ability to throw for 400 yards. If I'm not mistaken, he has thrown for 400 yards at one point in his career. I could be wrong. Lamar Jackson is a very good quarterback. He's a fantastic quarterback. I think you could argue that he is on the verge of being an elite quarterback. The one thing to me that keeps Lamar Jackson from being an elite quarterback is that he's not an elite passer. And I think because he's not an elite passer, that's going to be the reason why Lamar Jackson doesn't win a Super Bowl. You look at me and say, hey, Marcus, you're acting like there's never been an elite, there hasn't been quarterbacks that aren't elite passers to win a Super Bowl. And to that point, I would say you're absolutely right. Nick Foles just won a Super Bowl not too long ago. Nick Foles was not an elite passer. The difference, though, between Nick Foles and Lamar Jackson is not only was Nick Foles the backup, and not only was that team that Eagles team, when they win the Super Bowl, was hinged more so on the defense and the offense. And I would say about this team, when I would say about Lamar Jackson and this Baltimore Ravens team, this is clearly by far a better offensive team than it is defensively. That's number one. Number two, more importantly, Lamar Jackson's the starter. Lamar Jackson is better than Nick Foles, and Lamar Jackson is the face of this franchise. And even though, yes, Nick Foles did win a Super Bowl without his arm, You know who the quarterback was that season that was playing phenomenally, that put this team in the position to make the run for the Super Bowl before he got hurt? Carson Wentz. And that season, Carson Wentz was fantastic with his arm. He was an elite passer. He was arguably the best quarterback in his division that season. That's the last time we ever looked at Carson Wentz and said, hey, he's a better quarterback than Dak Prescott. Hasn't been the same since. That's fine. The point that I'm making, though, is as much as I love Lamar Jackson, as I love watching Lamar Jackson play the game of football, as much as I'll even admit it's not impossible for Lamar Jackson to win a Super Bowl like this. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying strictly based on precedent, based on what we've seen and what we expect, especially in the playoffs, what we've seen in the playoffs, when the game slows down and when it becomes important that you stop your opponent on the run. That is where I'm looking. I'm saying I don't know if Lamar Jackson can take it to that next level. I'm not saying he can't. I hope he proves me wrong. I really do. I would love to see Lamar Jackson win the Super Bowl because I think it'd be great. I'd go to the parade. I'm not a Ravens fan, but it's like down the street. I'd go to the parade for all I care. I don't know. But I think Lamar Jackson's fantastic. I just want to see him win a game with his arm. And I think once we win a game with his arm, then we can really have a conversation about Lamar Jackson's potential to win the Super Bowl. Because when you look at the teams that are better than the Ravens, when you look at the Bills, when you look at the Chiefs, when you even look at teams that could compete with the Ravens, the Chargers, we look at the Browns, when you look at teams like maybe the Colts, if they can get it together, like the Raiders, even maybe based on what we've seen so far, even the Steelers to this point in the season. When you look at all those teams, even the Patriots, look at all those teams. All of those quarterbacks, while yes, Lamar Jackson is better than them running the football, I would say maybe with an exception of Big Ben and Mac Jones, because I'd say they're probably on the same level, but I'd still give the edge to Big Ben and Mac Jones. All of those other guys, Patrick Mahomes for the Chiefs, Baker Mayfield for the Browns, Josh Allen most definitely with the Bills. All of those guys are a better thrower of the football than Lamar Jackson. And in the playoffs, that's the difference. Your ability to throw the football, because defenses tend to want to shut down your run game, especially if that's what you do, especially if that is your strength, especially if that is the thing that you rely on when your pass game isn't working, is your run. They're going to want to shut you down on the run. And if you're shut down on the run, as we've seen a couple times in the past, the question becomes, can Lamar Jackson get the ball done? Can Lamar Jackson get the job done with his arm? And we haven't seen it yet. That's all I'm saying, is that we haven't seen it yet. I think once we see it, then we can better assess Lamar Jackson's likelihood to win a Super Bowl. Because if he can beat you with his arm, then there's really no stopping him. Because you know he can beat you with his legs and he can beat you with his arm. Then like, okay, we're done. Super Bowl's in his future. I still think a Super Bowl is in the future, whether he develops that trait or not. I think he's just that good. And I think because he's so good, and now that he has beaten Patrick Mahomes, I think because he's just that good, because he's beating Patrick Mahomes, and because he's still in his prime with a really good offense and a really good defense around him, this is a really good football team. He's got a pretty good head coach on the sidelines in John Harbaugh. Like, there's no reason why he can't win a Super Bowl. I'm saying if he doesn't win a Super Bowl, it's probably going to be because he hasn't demonstrated his ability to be an elite passer. And that's all I'm saying. Not crapping on Lamar Jackson. I know there's a lot of Ravens fans that probably watch this. Not crapping on Lamar Jackson. There are a lot of Lamar Jackson fans that watch this. Not crapping on Lamar Jackson. I don't think he sucks. I just want to see him get better throwing the football. Once he does that, we're good. Before we get out of here, I do just want to offer my 2 cents on Monday Night Football tonight. Green Bay Packers, Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions have consistently given the Green Bay Packers hell these last 2 seasons. We've closed out each of the last 2 seasons against the Lions. Both of those games have been like yikes moments for me, because they've been surprisingly close. Aaron Rodgers last week looked unengaged. He looked disengaged. He looked like he did not care about the sport of football. He looked like he didn't care about playing for the Green Bay Packers. He looked like he didn't care for the Green Bay Packers fans, the Green Bay Packers faithful. He looked like he wanted to be elsewhere. Aaron Rodgers cannot come out to Lambeau Field tonight against the Detroit Lions and lose because he's disinterested. First of all, he can't lose at all. That just can't happen. The Vikings have lost. They are 0-2. The Bears right now are top division because they're 1-1. The Green Bay Packers cannot lose this game, and they definitely cannot lose this game because of Aaron Rodgers. Because we lost last week because of Aaron Rodgers. I don't want to predict this game. going to, and you all know my pick. I'm going to pick the Packers, of course, because I'm a Packers fan. I don't want to pick this game. I don't even want to think about this football game because this game is going to be a source of stress. Because one or two things are going to happen. Either the Packers are going to win and they're going to win convincingly and I'm going to be okay, or they're going to win and there's going to be like and I'm going to be stressed, or we're going to lose and I'm going to be stressed. The only way I can have a stress-free life for the rest of the week, at least until Sunday, is if the Aaron Rodgers is the reason why we win. The Aaron Rodgers is undefeated at home on Monday night. He's undefeated. You cannot beat Aaron Rodgers at home in a Monday Night Football game. It's never happened. He's 8-0. Tonight cannot be the night. Tonight cannot be the exception to the rule. Tonight better not be the exception to the rule for the sake of Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers, again, was the reason why we lost last week. I think he knows that. I think he does. I think he knows he was a little bit disinterested. I think he knows he wasn't tapped in and as focused as he would like to be, or as he usually is. Very uncharacteristic game. Poor decision making with football and things of that sort. I think he knows that. And I think he knows that he has to be Aaron Rodgers. He has to be the guy that we've all grown to love. And some of them hate, some of us hate. Some people, not me, I'm not one of those people. Some people hate, but that's what we need. That's what we need. We need that bad man, Aaron Rodgers, because when we have that bad man, Aaron Rodgers, we win football games. Don't want to wake up tomorrow. I don't want to check my phone later tonight. I'm not going to watch the game. I'm not going to watch. I don't want to watch the game. I'm not going to. I don't want to wake up tomorrow to text messages from Bryce and Charlton and Josh and Perry, and text messages from a friend of mine that's a Lions fan and friends of mine that are Cowboys fans because they just love crapping on me because I love crapping on them. That's fine. Cannot wake up or check my phone through the course of the game, after the game, or tomorrow morning when I wake up and see that the Green Bay Packers lost to the Detroit Lions. Because if the Green Bay Packers lose to the Detroit Lions, I'm not posting an episode tomorrow. There will not be a Monday Night Football recap if the Packers lose tonight, because I'm not gonna want to recap, relive, and go back through a loss to the Detroit Lions. If we lose to a respectable team, fine, I'll recap it all day long. I'm not recapping the loss to the Detroit Lions. So if the Packers don't win, then we won't have episode 100 on Wednesday. It'll be episode 99, whatever. But in all seriousness, though, I do have the Packers winning. I think we'll get a vintage game from Aaron Rodgers. I think he'll snap back. I think we'll be okay. I think last week was an anomaly. I think it was an aberration. I think it should be assessed in a vacuum. That's how I've been assessing it. That's how you guys should assess it too. And hopefully we're good. Again, new episode tomorrow, win or lose. New episode tomorrow to recap Monday Night Football, another edition of Go Talk Players of the Week. And then, of course, like I said, this Wednesday, live, 7 p.m. Eastern, we will have the 100th episode, of the Go Talk podcast. It's been an incredible ride. I've appreciated all the love and support along the way. It's greatly appreciated. It's been all the likes and the comments and the subscriptions and the advice. It's been great. To all the people that have come on the show, I want to thank all of you, guests and people that I've interviewed. I want to thank all of you. I won't go down the list right now. I'll save that for Wednesday, but I thank all of you. All the people that have had me on their show. I appreciate you guys for that as well. It's been my distinct honor and privilege to not only have people on my show, but to grace but to be welcome on other people's shows. So yeah, I want to thank all of you guys. It's been great. Doing this for a little over 13 months now. It's been a pleasure. Season 2 is coming. We did have to delay season 2 because there are some things in production that we had to take a pause on, but season 2 is coming. It is in production. When everything is squared away, we will get it. I will give a season 2 announcement. We'll have new interviews. We'll have a slightly different show format. We'll probably have more segments. We'll have bigger shows. We'll do more live shows, things like that. Maybe some giveaways, all that good stuff. So again, please thank you for all love and support for episode 100 coming out on Wednesday. Thank you guys. Episode 99 tomorrow, recapping Monday Night Football. Of course, this is episode 98. Numbers are great, man. Numbers are great. So thank you guys for watching. As always, if you haven't already, check out any video you haven't already seen. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell. We'll be right back here with some more Go Talk podcast very, some more GOAT Talk content very soon. So this is Marcus signing off. Thank you guys for watching as always.